I, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate that Jenny and Karen and Laura set up the scene of how sugars are important, actually. And I would argue that we should be eating even more sugars. But today, I think it's more of a different kind of presentation because it's on honey and some of the rare sugars in honey. So I'd be focusing on those. These are my disclosures. So dietary guidelines have recommend reducing free sugars or added sugar, so less than 10% of total energy. Now, if you notice, honey is considered a free or added sugar. And I would argue that that's just a very broad brushstroke where they just put everything that is um, sweet. And interestingly, fruit is not, but honey is, because honey can be added to drinks or put on food. So that's an issue, but honey is not a simple sugar as it is, so, which I'll explain. However, even though there is a movement to a recommendation to reduce added sugar, including honey, consumers actually rate honey above other sweeteners because of its natural, unprocessed, good for environment, antioxidant, flavorful. So people relate honey to being natural compared to other types of sugar. So people always prefer honey. Many people prefer honey if it's available. According to FDA, the definition of honey is a thick, sweet, syrupy substance that bees make as food from nectar of flowers and store in honeycombs. Honey is majority sugars, around 80%, 60 to 85%, depending on the source, the floral source and the type of the bee. Around 20% or 18% is water, and around 1 to 2 to 3% are other organic acids, minerals, vitamins, enzymes, proteins. We focus on those small amount. We say the honey, any benefit of honey is because of those, but actually majority of honey is sugars. The benefit of honey has been well documented. I think humans have been using it for more than 2,000 years, domesticated over 2,000 years ago in Egypt. It was used as a wound healing for a long time, still being used for wound healing in hospitals. It is mentioned in the Old Testament, the Quran, even the New Testament. So honey has been there with us for a long time. There are so many benefits of honey, but these are all related to its anti-bacterial activity, mainly. The question is, what is the relationship of honey with cardiometabolic diseases? So there we have very little evidence on hard outcomes, but we have evidence on these risk factors, cardiometabolic risk factors. So one of our students, Amna Ahmed, did a meta-analysis, systematic meta-analysis, looking at honey compared to other sugars, or honey versus sucrose, majority of the trials. So there were 33 trials with 1,000 subjects with the dose of 40 grams per day. So what does honey do compared to sucrose? So you can see here that looking at all the cardiometabolic risk factors that we can see, fasting glucose is reduced, and also it improves cholesterol, LDL, HDL, and fasting triglyceride markers, which was quite unique. We then also looked at the floral source of honey, because that's very important. A lot of papers would say honey, but they won't say which source it is. But some papers actually do, so then we separated the floral source. So we found that the relationship is mainly driven by clover honey and rubinia honey, and for these outcomes. And we also looked at processing of honey. So this process of honey is, when you take honey from honeycombs, you can heat it up and then process it. So the heating and processing itself destroys some of the beneficial compounds. So many people now prefer raw honey. And we showed that actually it's raw honey which is driving the effects. I'll just give an example over here. So for example, fasting glucose, The clover honey was driving the effect of the reduction in fasting glucose, and it was the raw honey type. Otherwise, if you heat honey to above 60 degrees, it actually ruins it. So what are the ingredients in honey that confer this beneficial effect if honey is just sugars? So honey is made from nectar, which I described before. Nectar is mainly is mainly sucrose. There's very little fructose in glucose, and it's water rich, around 55 to 60% of water. So bees take it, use various enzymes, including the most important diastase and invertase. This invertase is different from the yeast invertase, which is used on sucrose to produce HFCS. It's a different kind of invertase because it then produces a lot of rare sugars. So it produces around 10% of honey is rare sugars, 10 to 15%. It can, I've written the 7 to 10%, but it can be slightly more also. So what are these rare sugars? So the rare sugars are monosaccharides and their derivatives, including disaccharides, which are found in limited quantities in nature. Common sugars are sucrose, glucose, maltose, and fructose. But rare sugars are these other sugars which are found very little. But in honey, honey is very unique because it has a large quantity of rare sugars. So in honey, which rare sugars are present? So there are sucrose isomers. So sucrose is fructose and glucose bonded by alpha 1,2 glycosidic bond. But then there are 1,1, 1,3, 1,4, 1,5, and 1,6 bond fructose glucose disaccharide, which is called sucrose isomers. So trihallulose, turanose, maltulose, leucrose, isomaltulose. Interestingly, these other bonds are difficult to break down in the gut. So that's why they are associated with lower GI. If GI has been tested for a few of them, they have been. And many of them are prebiotics because they cannot even be broken down and they go to the gut microbiome. Then there are also maltose isomers, which are maltose is like 1,4, but then they have trihallose, which is 1,2, cojipaju. These are glucose disaccharides. So the total of more than 29, so I looked through the literature, around 29 plus rare sugars are found in honey. And common sugars in general, as Jenny said, it's energy, and you need for energy, fat storage, glycogen storage. I would say in exercise and anything that we do, we need glucose. But what do rare sugars do? Rare sugars have been studied a bit, especially in preclinical models. They've been studied quite in detail. With human models, very little. But they have been associated with immune modulation, sugar, reducing glucose uptake, GLP-1 secretion, low glycemic response, fat oxidation, and some other benefits. I'll give you a few examples of some of the rare sugars just to show what I'm talking about. So trihallose, for example, is a 1,1 glycosidic bond glucose disaccharide compared to maltose, which is 1,4. It's found in insect shrimps and honey. It is the major source of energy for insects. So insects' blood actually has trihallose in it. They don't run on glucose. They run on trihallose. The trihallose is broken down into glucose, and then they use it. It actually reduces plasma postprandial glucose in studies. And interestingly, it is broken down by trihallase enzyme in the brush border of our gut. Trihallase enzyme is also found in the kidney, in the liver, in muscle, and in the brain. We don't know why. Because trihallase completely breaks down trihallose, and trihallose is not absorbed in the blood. So why is there trihallase enzyme everywhere in our body, which is, we don't know yet. But it's in mammalian, most mammals, they have found trihallase enzymes in many parts of the body. And we cannot produce trihallose ourselves. It is slowly absorbed. It's 45% sweet as sucrose, 90% caloric value. Glycemic index is 72. It is now produced in large quantity, especially in ice cream. It is used because in ice cream, trehalose reduces its, I think, its melting point. So when it actually melts and then refreezes, it doesn't become. It retains its ability to be like more ice creamy and not become more like before. It used to become. I don't remember. I can't say the name, but it's especially used in ice cream. Short-term effects it reduces. It has a better glycemic control. So in acute response, it has lower glycemic response than glucose. In longer-term studies, we did a meta-analysis. There is some indication that it might reduce glucose, but it hasn't reached significance. There are some other studies that are coming out. When they come, we'll see what's happening. There's another one I'll show. Koji Bios is 1,2 glycosidic bond. Interestingly, it is largely resistant to our enzymes, and it's a prebiotic. So honey sugars are mainly prebiotic. So this is one more. It's very difficult to synthesize industrially, so it's mainly found in honey, and leads to production of short-chain fatty acids. No human trials have been done. Only 2 rare sugars where in honey where human trials have been done. The rest haven't been done as of yet. Isomaltulose is one which is very well studied. It's also called palatinose. It's slowly hydrolyzed. It's a 50% sweet as sugar. The caloric value is same as sugar, but it has very low glycemic index. And we did a meta-analysis looking at its effect compared to sugar, and it reduces body fat and fasting glucose, and also fasting insulin. Yeah, Laura described like allulose. Allulose is not found in honey, so that has to be remembered. Allulose, if you find allulose in honey, it means that honey has been adulterated. Allulose is found when you make HFCS, and then if you put HFCS in honey to, in a sense, you adulterate it, then allulose is found. Allulose is actually an epimer of fructose. It's 70% sweet as sucrose. It is low caloric sweetener, and it's, I think, available in America, Japan, Korea, not in Canada. And it actually has it has shown to reduce. So this is a meta-analysis shown to reduce body weight, waist circumference, and some liver markers. There is a lot of research going on allulose, especially it has around $300 million industry, and the estimate is that it's because it's a sugar, it's not a like artificial sweetener, not considered artificial sweetener, and has no caloric value per se. It is estimated its value will become, like the whole industry will become $6 billion in a like half a decade or so. Interestingly, this is for Jenny. So interestingly, so the European honeybee was taken to Australia, but Australia already had bees called the stingless bees. So stingless bees, they actually looked at the honey, and very interestingly, it has 40% or 44% of its sugar is actually trihallulose, which is a very unusual 1,1 glucose fructose bond. There are only preclinical animal studies done. It's non-karyogenic, antioxidant, low glycemic index. I don't know how they said low glycemic index, because the papers I followed, I couldn't find a study where they did a glycemic index for it. But it is something that needs to be seen, because a lot of papers coming out, and there's a lot of interest because it can make a big industry for stingless bee honey. So these are all the rare sugars that I found where some information is present of their benefit. These are all found in honey. Sweetness, GI, for many days, GI is We don't know. And human studies are only done on isomaltulose and trehalose. For the rest, there are no human studies at all. And that's one thing that we need to do. Also, we looked at some American honeys and looked at their GI. So their GI is actually lower than, so the GI actually is very different depending on the floral source. So they can be very similar, like it can be like medium GI, but some of the honeys have low GI, and why that is it because of the rare sugar content? We wanted to look at that, so we did a meta-analysis of all the published studies which have reported honey and the glucose response, a GI response. So we actually did a ratio of means to look at the honey type, the source of honey, which is the floral source, and its GI values. The overall is like 62, but there are some which are very strange. So iron bark, red gum, stringy bark, this yellow box. These are Australian honeys, which I think Jenny did that work. It was very strange. I looked at the estimated GI from the sugar content, and this GI is very low. It's lower than it should be possible. So either some of the rare sugars are actually reducing the uptake of sugars from the gut because of what's in the honey. That needs to be looked at. And also, we also try to see if some of the rare sugars are associated with increase or is associated with the GI or not. So we found some of these rare sugars are associated with reduction in GI. For example, fructose, cogibiose, 1-castose, and others. And there are some which increase and some which have no association at all. This is the work that is almost done to be. So in a sense, there is wide variation in glucose IUC response, which we call GI because it's a ratio of means from different floral honeys, and rare sugars are significant modifiers of it. So in conclusion, honey is not a simple rare sugar. It's up to 15% rare sugars. Floral types have shown benefits for some of these cardiometabolic risk factors. The effects can potentially be explained by a rare sugar content, which individually have shown benefit on different risk markers, for example, glucose digestion, absorption, appetite hormones, and gut microbiome. But more research needs to be done on many of these rare sugars because they haven't been studied in humans. So many thanks with that. It was a very different kind of presentation. And one thing I learned from John is use a lot of slides. So I think I've followed that advice very closely. Thank you.